Hey there, guys. So I want to thank you for taking the time to check out today's live stream, where, of course, we're going to be going over the topic of building muscle isn't about winning today's workout. And I will explain exactly what that does mean as we go through this particular stream and discuss this topic. So, before I do get started, of course, guys, you can check out my website, which is bponlinefitness.com. You can access my website directly on my Facebook profile. There is a link where you can go directly there. It is in my about section on my website. So definitely check that out if that's what you want to learn more about when it comes to online fitness coaching. You can also get free resources on there, such as on various topics related to fitness, nutrition, recovery, and things of that nature. I do have an email list you can sign up for where I send out an email newsletter each and every Monday. And then I also have a free fitness blog that you can check out on my website. You can put in bponlinefitness.com/blog and you can check that out as well. But I do update that pretty much every Friday. You can check out a new post on there. So let's go ahead and get started, guys, with this topic. Um, One other thing I will mention is that if you've not watched these before, I do these streams every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. I do a TikTok stream every Tuesday at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. And then every other Thursday, I do a YouTube live stream, which I've recently changed the schedule of so that I could balance out when I do streams. So if you want to check those out, definitely take a few moments to, again, check those out. You can check out the latest live streams I've done in the past on my YouTube. All you have to do is search Brandon Scott Parton on YouTube and you can find my channel. But I always make sure to archive all of my live streams previously, and you can check them out there. If you do want the link to my YouTube channel, just let me know and I can send that over to you. So let's go ahead and get started with our topic today, guys, which is on building muscle isn't about winning today's workout. So in this topic, what we're going to be going over in particular is basically why you don't need to go all out in your workouts. So that's basically what we're going to be talking about is how it's important to be a little bit more intentional on how we approach workouts rather than feeling like we have to put maximum effort in each workout, if that makes sense. So the first point we are going to go over here is the best workout is the one you can recover from. So training hard enough to stimulate growth, not so hard that recovery falls behind. So consistently productive workouts are going to outperform occasional sessions that leave you overly fatigued. So when you approach workouts, you don't want to approach them as a all or nothing type of method, if that makes sense. So with your workouts should be focused on a consistent amount of intensity. They don't need to be an all out workout each and every time. They need to be balanced. You don't want to be constantly fatigued in each workout you perform in your routine. You want to have a sort of level intensity in those workouts. And the reason why that is important is because it makes it much better for you to progress when you are focusing on training with the intention of recovery in mind. So, recovery is going to determine your adaptation. Your muscles repair and grow through adequate sleep, proper nutrition, hydration, and planned rest, and not by spending more time in the gym. And like I discussed yesterday in a TikTok stream, what I discussed is that with your workouts, especially when you're starting out, you do not have to feel like you have to go all in when you get started. Generally, 30 minutes to an hour is going to be a good starting point. But a lot of people think that whenever you spend more time in the gym, that equates to more muscle. But it's not necessarily the case because what really equates to more muscle is how you approach recovery and what you do post workout. So, again, planned rest is really going to benefit you in the long run. So, leave some performance for tomorrow. So, most training sessions should challenge you while still allowing you to return for your next workout feeling strong and ready to perform. So, that's the way you need to approach it. Weekly training quality matters more than one incredible workout. So, one great workout is not going to transform your physique. So, muscle growth itself is driven by these repeated training sessions that you have over weeks and months and not a single all out effort workout. Consistent, high quality workouts create the repeated stimulus your muscles need to adapt and grow. So, progress comes from accumulating productive training. Like what I've mentioned about progressive overload, when we're adding up that training, is what is going to lead to better muscle growth in the long run. Progress, again, comes from accumulating productive training rather than chasing occasional perfect workouts. So focus on quality every week. Prioritize proper exercise technique and controlled repetitions or reps in your workouts. Make sure that you train with enough intensity to challenge your muscles while also maintaining good form. Recover well between those sessions so you can perform at a high level consistently. Aim to make small improvements in weight, repetitions, and execution over time. So one thing I mentioned when it comes to our progression in our workouts, and I mention this to clients as well, is that when we progress in our workouts, all we have to focus on is incremental progressions. It does not mean you're taking these huge leaps. It just means you're taking gradual steps, like gradually increasing your weight by a few pounds, each week, or gradually increasing your reps by at least one more rep each week. So when we're thinking of progression, we're not thinking of taking these big leaps. And that's the same way, when we're focusing on really increasing our performance in our workouts and keeping our progress consistent, is that we don't want to go all out in every session. We want to, of course, have the intention of progression, but we want to do it in an incremental manner, if that makes sense. So your body measures total training stress and not motivation. So again, recovery responds to total stress. So your muscles and nervous system don't distinguish between hard workouts, poor sleep, work deadlines, or emotional stress. They all contribute to your total recovery demand. So more motivation doesn't mean more capacity. So feeling motivated is valuable, but it doesn't automatically mean your body is going to be ready for maximum intensity every day. So don't, again, rely on that motivation. It's more about you consistently showing up to those sessions. Match your training to your readiness. So some days call for pushing your limits, while others are better suited for maintaining quality. So reducing volume or also focusing on technique. So again, not all day has to be the same. Like I've mentioned before, there's maybe certain times where you want to do a deload, which is where you're not increasing in your progression, you're just keeping your intensity steady and focusing on maintaining the intensity, and then as you progress forward you're wanting to increase that intensity. So that deload is just a short amount of lower intensity, giving your body time to sort of rest and recover. Match your training to readiness. So again, some days call for pushing your limits while others are better suited for maintaining quality. Nutrition and sleep buffer training stress. So make sure, of course, you focus on adequate calories, sufficient protein, hydration, and quality sleep, which is going to help your body adapt to training instead of simply surviving it. So that's another thing to put into consideration as well. Progressive overload is measured over months, not minutes. So, like what I've mentioned with progressive overload, which again is the concept of gradually increasing intensity, allowing for more muscle growth and hypertrophy to happen. Progressive overload which I just went ahead of myself there. Again, progressive overload is the gradual increase of training demands over weeks and months and not trying to improve every single workout. This is something like what I mentioned before when we do workouts and when I have clients do particular workouts, they stay in a phase of workouts, which will be the same workouts that they'll perform every 4 weeks. And so in those workouts, that allows enough time to get adjusted to the workout and challenge yourself enough before you're ready to progress to the next phase. So, progressive overload again is more about staying consistent with a set of workouts while through that process increasing that intensity. So, again, small improvements in weight, repetitions, technique, or control are going to compound into significant muscle growth over time. So, some workouts will feel stronger than others due to recovery, stress, sleep, and nutrition, and this is going to be normal. And an extension to that, too, is that there are naturally going to be workouts that are going to be a little bit harder to perform because of maybe the way that you're performing the workout, like what I've mentioned with like incline based workouts. To me, I feel like there's a lot of different incline workouts that can be very difficult to perform. And the reason being is that you're having to focus on, again, basically pushing yourself against gravity. So like with when you're thinking of a dumbbell incline bicep curl, you're having the weight out to your sides off the bench and you're having to rely on bringing that weight up from a larger range of motion. So naturally with that, it may be harder and take you a little bit longer to progress than something that may be easy, like a more simple bicep curl, maybe a chest press, anything that may be easier, you know, you're probably able to progress more in those specific workouts, but then others take a little bit longer. So focus on consistent upward trends across your training log instead of chasing daily personal records. Long-term patience is going to reduce injury risk, support better recovery, and create sustainable strength and muscle gain in the long term. So again, recovery is part of every successful workout. So training starts the process, but recovery finishes it. Every workout creates the stimulus for muscle growth, but recovery is when your body repairs, adapts, and becomes stronger. So again, quality sleep, proper nutrition, hydration, and rest days are just as important as your time in the gym. So without adequate recovery, training performance is going to decline. Progress is going to slow, and the risk of injury is going to naturally increase. Recovering well is going to allow you to train with a greater intensity. That's another thing to keep in mind is that when we have a proper amount of recovery, this naturally improves our performance in our workouts. You're going to perform at your best. And also, if you're training, if your if your recovery is not where it needs to be, it is going to affect your progression, and your progression is going to be slower and not as steady as you would want it. Recovering well allows you to train with greater intensity, better technique, and more consistency over the long term. So view recovery as an essential training session that happens outside the gym and not as time away from making progress. So training hard enough versus training too hard. So training hard enough itself means challenging your muscles with good technique, appropriate intensity, and enough effort to simulate growth while maintaining quality movement. So when we're focusing on progress in our workouts, one thing we have to take into consideration is we want to focus on really being in a middle ground. So when we are progressing in our workouts, our main focus should be, of course, challenging ourselves, but it should also be in that middle ground to where we're at the same time able to perform the workouts in a controlled manner, having proper technique, and going through a full range of motion, going from start to finish without cutting the reps short. So that's sort of where your training should naturally be as far as the intensity is concerned. So training too hard often means excessive volume. So if you're trying to just lift the heaviest weight, you're lacking your recovery, whether that be you're not sleeping well, you're not taking nutrition into consideration. All of those different aspects are, of course, going to affect you training too hard or constantly pushing to failure. You don't need to push to failure every session. It's great to push close to failure if possible, but you don't need to push yourself to failure every single time. So what this does is leads to fatigue that can reduce your performance and slow progress. So muscle growth depends on balancing training stress with your body's ability to recover and adapt, not on feeling exhausted after every workout. So leave the gym knowing you trained with purpose and not simply because you're completely worn out. So there needs to be a middle ground there. It does not need to be an all-out session. Like what I've mentioned before, a lot of people usually basically sort of say that sweating or being really sore is an example of training hard and this and that. But the fact is even with me, a lot of workouts that I do, I rarely get sore. I rarely sweat a lot, but I still make progress. So just because you're sweating a lot in a session or just because you are extremely sore is not necessarily an indicator of progression. And that's something I've discussed previously before about soreness as well as sweating itself, where we automatically think that that's a sign of that, which it can be a sign in certain ways, but is not the clear indicator that you're making progress, if that makes sense. So the hidden cost of constantly chasing muscle soreness. So I kind of got ahead of myself here because we're talking about muscle soreness next. But again, muscle soreness is not something you have to focus on completely. It is going to happen, but it is not a clear indicator. So muscle soreness, or what is known as DOMS, which is delayed onset muscle soreness, is a response is excuse me, excuse me, is a response to unfailure or unfamiliar or demanding exercise, but it is not a reliable measure of muscle growth, as I just mentioned. So constantly chasing soreness can reduce training quality by leaving you too fatigued to perform your next workout effectively. So excessive soreness may limit your range of motion, alter exercise technique, and increase the risk of compensations. And what that means by compensations is, for example, when we're performing a workout that may be targeting a specific muscle, let's say like when we're talking about a chest press, or this could be really any workout in particular, but any workout where we're focusing on targeting a specific muscle and what we're doing in that workout when we're performing that workout and our form is sort of lacking, a lot of times our supporting muscles that help to keep that muscle stable are overtaking the target muscle. So that's what we mean by compensations. When you have that compensation happen and those other muscles are trying to take over from that target muscle, this is where, again, this can lead to injury, but it can also really, again, affect your progress where you're not effectively engaging that muscle that you're wanting to target. So, consistent high quality training with progressive overload is going to produce better long term results than repeatedly trying to feel as sore as possible. So, again, don't rely on soreness. One thing I will mention with delayed onset muscle soreness or DOMS is that this can occur, and a lot of times for beginners, it can occur pretty often. This delayed onset muscle soreness happens generally 40, well, it could be 24 to, to 78 hours post workout. It's sort of the post workout time where you'll have like, you won't feel the muscle soreness initially, but it'll come like within a day or two post workout. So that is going to naturally occur. But like I said, when we're talking about muscle soreness, don't rely on it as an indicator of progression. So every workout should prepare you for the next one. So every training session, again, should challenge your muscle while leaving enough recovery capacity to perform well in your next workout. So again, focus on your quality reps, your control technique, and purposeful intensity, which is keeping that intensity where it challenges you, but it allows you to perform those reps and technique in the proper manner instead of chasing complete exhaustion. So, again, progressive overload works best when you can consistently return stronger, not when you need extra days to recover from excessive fatigue. Recovery habits, again, going back to your sleep, making sure that you're getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep, making sure your nutrition is in check, which means you're tracking your macros, you're keeping your macros in check, you're staying within your calorie intake that you need, and then your hydration, making sure that you're staying adequately hydrated not only in your workout but throughout the day. And of course, managing stress at the same time is going to help ensure today's effort is going to lead to tomorrow's progress. So, again, that's what you need to think about when it comes to really approaching your workouts and not treating them as this all out session, but about this gradual growth and this gradual intensity forward. So I hope that this really helped you guys in a lot of ways and really made you think about how to approach your workouts. Again, this is going to be really beneficial more as you get adjusted to your routine, and you're going to notice the major effects that come with keeping your intensity balanced throughout your routine instead of trying to go all out in every session. So don't feel like you have to do every session all out. Keep your intensity balanced. Make sure that you're focusing on those key concepts like your reps that you're performing, making sure you're performing those reps in a controlled manner, having a good range of motion, making sure that your technique is correct and that the target muscle is being engaged, not focusing on really heavy weight. Again, you don't want to ego lift. You want to focus on lifting the weight that is going to allow you to perform the rep in a controlled manner, proper range of motion, and good technique. So that's pretty much all I have for you guys today. I hope that this was helpful and valuable. And I hope that this gave you, again, a little bit of insight on how to approach your workouts and to progress more efficiently. So, thank you guys once again. If you guys do have any questions about anything I discussed here today or in any previous live stream, feel free to let me know. I do have, of course, a ton of different live streams on my YouTube channel as well that you can check out. And then you can also check out some of my short form videos that I upload too. I talk about various different workouts and exercises on those. And I'm always sharing content daily on various nutrition, fitness, and recovery related advice. Again, guys, I do have a website, which is bponlinefitness.com, where you can check out a ton of information related to online fitness coaching. But with all that being said, guys, thank you for your time. And I will see you guys next Wednesday in the next live stream. So thank you guys once again for taking the time to watch.